Good day and welcome to another episode of Drew's Book Reviews. Have you ever wondered if the awesome technology we see in science fiction could actually work? You know, like phasers and transporters, time travel, faster than light speed travel with warp drives, things like that. Well, it's a fun ideas to explore at least, and that's what we get with Michio Kaku, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, Physics of the Impossible. So this book explores these very ideas, and lucky for you, I actually was able to arrange a special guest for this video to have this discussion with. So stay tuned, I'll be right back. Welcome aboard the Enterprise. It's always a pleasure to have visitors from the past. Well, thank you, Captain. You know, I've just been such a big fan for such a long time. So thank you so much for welcoming me aboard. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about some of the physics behind the technology that you use every single day. You know, stuff that was really only dreamed about in my time. Though much of the technology that I knew of was basically inspired by science fiction. Well, you know, that's true. Just for example, time travel. You travel to us from the past. This was made possible by accelerating you near to the speed of light. This effectively slowed time down dramatically for you. And when you came out of that near light speed travel, you were 400 years in the future, bringing you here. Well, that's pretty wild how that works. You know, it's hard to imagine time not being a constant, but relative to the motion of the observer, but I guess that's what makes it possible. Yeah, it is pretty wild. Of course, it is much harder to travel backwards in time. It's thought that you would have to go faster than light speed in order to create a reverse time flow as time stops at light speed, so you would have to go faster than light in order to travel back to your time. Well, you know, it's a good thing you have that warp drive, faster than light travel. Well, that's actually not quite how it works. Well, what do you mean? Well, you see, with warp drive, it doesn't actually propel you faster than light. You see, there's no reverse time flow as a result. I'm afraid you might be stuck here. The warp drive warps space-time around the ship, pulling space towards you and pushing the space that's behind you away from you. So it has that effect of being like you're going faster than light, but you're not really. Well, that sounds kind of complicated, but how do you power this space warping? That must consume a lot of energy. Oh, it is very much so. And it does take a lot of energy. We use antimatter warp engines, where matter and antimatter are carefully mixed in a reaction chamber, because matter and antimatter destroy each other on contact and generates a lot of energy. Antimatter, you know, I've heard of that. In my time, scientists at CERN in Switzerland were actually just barely beginning to work on that. I believe that it was at CERN that antimatter was first created in the lab, but I guess 400 years in the future, you've got that down pat now, eh? Well, we certainly do. So one last question for you before I try to get back to my time. Transporters, what's up with that? I didn't think it was even possible. Well, that was recently discovered as possible. At least the laws of physics do not expressly forbid it. It was the early 21st century, I believe, first 20 years or so or something like that, that experiments were successfully completed that teleported or transported a single atom across a room. Of course, it took hundreds of years of research to get the transporters that we have today in the 24th century, but it actually is possible, at least hypothetically. And still a long way off. That is just amazing. Well, anyway, Captain, thanks for your time, but I've got to get going back to my time now. I'll let you get back to running your ship. Bye. Anytime. Thanks for dropping by. Bye. Okay, well, that was a nice little trip into the 24th century. So nice of the captain to host us on the bridge of his ship so that we could have that short little discussion. So now you have a better idea of what this book is about what physics of the impossible is about, the kind of technologies that are discussed in it, and a very, very brief overview about the hypothetical idea of the way things might work. Let's talk a little bit about the book itself in a little more detail. So essentially what's Michio Kaku, again, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, what he does with this book is he kind of divides up these hypothetical sci-fi technologies into three categories. We have class 1 impossibilities. So things that are basically impossible today but don't actually violate the laws of physics. So it's stuff that we could probably do, the technological ability to do that is probably in the near future, but it's just not something we're quite there yet. And then he also has what he calls class 2 impossibilities, which essentially push the limits to the very edge of our understanding of science and physics, and really delve more into the hypothetical realms of reality, where sure, they're not expressly forbidden by the laws of physics themselves, but the chance of this ever happening, of this technology ever existing in reality, is pretty much impossible. And then we have class 3 improbabilities, which, well, covers the impossible. It can't happen. There's no way that that kind of thing could ever possibly happen in reality. So that's how he kind of divides up this book as he goes through the three different types of possibilities or impossibilities as he describes them within this book. So overall, I would say that it was an interesting read. It was kind of fun to delve into these sci-fi technologies that, perhaps we don't really spend a lot of time thinking about as far as whether it's possible or not possible. So I definitely did enjoy that, especially being a sci-fi nerd or nut myself. I love kind of getting into the discussion of, are these technologies possible? Can it actually happen? And how does that actually work? That was good. I wish I could say I felt that the entire book as a whole was really super good. And while the subject matter was definitely interesting, I did find that the writing just, like, it wasn't boring necessarily, but it wasn't written in a way that I would say really made me super duper excited to learn more about it either. So it's kind of that, in the middle, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Still an enjoyable read because it's on subjects that interest me, but the writing style just wasn't as captivating. It wasn't as interesting as far as pulling me in goes. I've read a lot of books on physics and things relating to physics. Definitely, he's no Brian Greene in the writing, but he's still still interesting subjects nonetheless were discussed within this book. Some parts of the discussion that happened within this book is a discussion concerning artificial intelligence and robots. It really kind of felt a bit out of date at the time that I was reading it. Now, that being said, this book was originally published back in 2008. I really knew nothing about artificial intelligence 12 years ago, more than 12 years ago, 13 years ago now. So I don't know how out of date it was at the time of publishing, but from what I know of artificial intelligence and robotics now, it definitely felt out of date and a little bit old news essentially. But I guess we can't really fault the book for that because the book, like I said, is 13 years old already. So there's no, I guess that's not really a knock, just kind of how I felt. It's like, hey, this is a bit outdated. But again, that book, that aspect, I didn't give it a downgraded star rating for that reason specifically, but just something that I kind of felt as I was reading through the book and feeling that that was a little bit outmoded. Some things that were brought up within this book is the Alan Turing story of Apple logo with the bite taken out of it that was supposedly pays homage to Alan Turing, who committed suicide by biting a poison apple. That is a rumor that isn't actually true. I thought it was a really cool story when I first read it, but shortly after discovered it's not actually true. That's not what the Apple logo is about. And so I definitely give it some thumbs down essentially for perpetuating this urban legend that isn't really true in any respect. Now, he does say that that is the rumored origin of the Apple logo, but regardless, I felt that kind of telling that story in a book that's supposed to be nonfiction only helps perpetuate a falsehood in that respect. So I kind of gave it a downgraded rating for that reason specifically. And also, along with that, some things that he discussed, such as the fine-tuning argument of the universe, which I just simply, I don't align with that way of thinking as far as fine-tuning goes. But he did discuss that in a little bit of detail about how the universe seems to be fine-tuned for life. But at the end of the day, it's like the puddle analogy from Douglas Adams. A puddle wakes up, finds itself in a puddle, and thinks, boy, the puddle must have been made for me, and not the other way around, where life itself formed itself based on the universe in which it finds itself. Not that the universe was created for the type of life that we find in it. So I'm kind of on the opposite side of the fine-tuning argument with that. So, I mean, those are really kind of the two things that knocked it down for me, or the three things. The writing was good. It wasn't terrible, but it certainly wasn't as attention-grabbing as I have read from other physics books from my perspective. The rumor about Alan Turing and the argument of fine-tuning, just so the kind of three things that didn't quite align with the way I was thinking or the way I enjoy my books. So at the end of the day, I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 star rating on Goodreads. But still, I would say, now 3 out of 5 means I liked it, I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was an amazingly awesome book, and I didn't think it was terrible. For me, 3 out of 5 is like right middle of the road. But at the end of the day, I did enjoy it. Thought it was a good, enjoyable read. And I absolutely would say, if you're interested in learning more about the technology behind science fiction and how could it possibly be possible, this isn't a bad book to read. And at the end of the day, for the most part, I did enjoy it, even if I didn't think it was a fantastic, amazing read. So those are just some of my thoughts on Physics of the Impossible, my nonfiction read of the month. And hey, yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you watched to the end, thanks so much for sticking around. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Discord. You can join me there. I've also got a Patreon. If you want to support this channel and what I do here, you can support me for as little as $1 per month if you want to join up on my Patreon, get early access to videos, and occasionally I might throw some patron-only videos on there that will never go live on YouTube, but will be exclusively for patrons. So if you want to join me there, definitely do so. I'd love to have you on there. Never obligatory. It's absolutely voluntary. But if you do, thank you so much. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, keep on reading. Bye.